Morning, guys. All right, today we're going to talk about the fundamentals of pistol marksmanship. Hopefully you still have your handout, the steps to fire the shot. I know we tested on it, so I know you guys know most of the stuff, or you should still have a reasonable idea about the stuff. But the 6 steps to fire the shot, in case you've forgotten: sight alignment, sight picture, breath control, focus on the front sight, trigger squeeze, follow through. We've done that with rifle. Now we're going to do it with a handgun. It works largely the same. There are some differences. That's what we're going to go over with today. The sights you guys used on the rifles, were those really weird circle aperture sights. Now we're going to handgun. We're going to be using more common, what's called notch and post sights. On your handout, actually, that's what the diagram was of. Okay, your typical notch, what's called notch and post sight. So you have a notch and a post. For your sight alignment, how you're going to create sight alignment is you're going to center your front sight in the rear sight, just like with the rifle. Center your front sight in the rear sight so that it's flush across the top, and you got equal amount of light on either side. So the front sight centered in the rear sight. That's sight alignment. How does that look? All right, you have a pistol with your rear sight, front sight. So sight alignment is, if you'll take your sights and line them up, something like that. Okay, so center that front sight in the rear sight. Sight alignment. Then we've got sight picture. Now, notice on our diagram here, sight picture. So we have our sight alignment here and our target. So sight picture, remember, is taking your sights and putting them on the target, centering your already aligned sights on your target. When you look at this, that doesn't look very centered, right? But I'm telling you, that's what we would be doing in class if we were shooting. How that would look for real is, you'd get your sights aligned, and let's see if I can do that. I'm doing it left-handed here. And you're going to put it at what's called a 6 o'clock hold right at the bottom of the target. Why not up in the target like that? All right, let me do one thing here. It might help us see this. I'm going to turn one of my studio lights off. All right, so you see your sights. 6 o'clock hold right at the bottom of the target. But what happens if we put them up in the target, centered? All right, you see, when you put them up in the target, it makes it harder to see. So I'm telling you, you would need to hold at the bottom of the target, right there. So how could I do that? How could I hold at the bottom of the target and hit the middle of the target? That doesn't make any sense. You guys have a clue to this already. When you were shooting the rifle, what was the first thing you did on the rifle every day when you got on it? You had to zero it, right? You had to set your sights. You could set your sights to do whatever you wanted them to. That's what you do in this type of environment where you're shooting at static bullseyes. Okay, you know what that bullseye target, the diameter of it, the distance away you are. So you can set your gun sights so that you can hold it however you want and still hit the center of the target. So we would set our sights so that if we're holding the sights right at the bottom of the circle, the black circle, the bullets would hit right in the middle of the circle. Because you have black sights, black target, if you've got them center hold, then it's going to be hard for you to tell what's what. If this gun was a defensive firearm, you're not going to know what exactly size target you're going to be shooting at. You're not going to know your distances and stuff, so you're going to want to, it's called center hold. Okay, instead of this, what we've been talking about, 6 o'clock hold, holding at the bottom, you typically want to use a defensive pistol, zeroed, the sight set for center hold. So where the gun sees is where it hits, all right? Different, just depends on what you're doing with it. All right, and so breath control, just like it was with rifle, when you're getting ready to shoot on the range, before you're going to make your shots, good deep breath in, blow out before you make your shot. So sight alignment, sight picture, breath control. What's the next one? Focus on front sight, right? Focus on the front sight. Still want your front sight to be clean, crisp, and sharp. Next step, put your finger on the trigger. Remember, when we put our finger on the trigger, we want it right in the center of that pad. Okay, the first pad, the trigger finger, right in the center of that pad is where we want our finger on the trigger, like that. Notice I've got a hook. Nothing of that finger touches the gun except for the trigger. Okay, that's the only place that you impact the gun is on the trigger. All right, trigger squeeze. When we squeeze the trigger, I want you to notice there's slack in the trigger. Okay, that slack, notice that's not making it shoot yet. It doesn't shoot till we get rid of all the slack. Then when we squeeze, it fires. Okay, but all guns, now granted this is just a laser gun, but this is designed to mimic this. All guns, unless you spend a significant amount of money on them, are going to have slack in the trigger. So anytime we're getting ready to just shoot, we have to remember that slack does not count as part of the trigger squeeze. And I'll see people really pretty routinely, when they squeeze the trigger, they'll just not even have their finger on the trigger when they're starting. So they'll put their finger, you should put your finger on the trigger, take up the slack, then slow, steady squeeze. But, okay. Trigger squeeze flows into follow through, just like it did on the rifle. When you're shooting, slow, steady squeeze, bang, the gun fires, you keep the pressure on the trigger, come back to the target, and release. Flow all the way through the shot. Okay, that's what we should be doing. All right, so after we've done that, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the accessory stuff. Okay, that's kind of review a little bit about the differences of from pistol shooting to rifle shooting. Now, how about the practicality of it, the positions and whatnot? There's two major shooting positions with the handgun. Both, I'm just going to be doing standing positions. Of course, you can shoot a handgun kneeling. You can shoot a handgun prone, for that matter. But we're just going to talk about standing because that's the vast majority of the time. If you shoot a handgun, you're going to be standing. The two major positions people use when shooting a pistol standing are the isosceles and the weaver. Okay, now the isosceles, you just stand feet shoulder width apart, stand up straight, and you put the pistol in both your hands and you punch the pistol straight out toward the target. Okay, so standing up straight, feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, punch the pistol straight out toward the target. Now, some things I've seen people screw up with this position. I tell you, feet shoulder width apart, that is to give you a better base. All right, if your feet are together, you don't have any base. So feet shoulder width apart, you've got a better base. Knees slightly bent. That means just don't lock your knees, okay? If you lock your knees, restricts blood flow, you can pass out. We don't want that. So just don't lock your knees. Standing up straight. This one's a very common error, all right? And what happens is, you should be standing up straight, possibly even leaned into the gun. But what a lot of people do when they start shooting is in their head they think I'm standing up straight. And then the more they shoot, the worse that gets. Okay, the more exaggerated that back bend gets. When you're shooting anything, but a handgun, rifle, shotgun, it really doesn't matter. If you're already leaned away from the gun, your body is going to feel the recoil more. All right. So if you're leaned back like this, any recoil that gun has, you're already going in that direction. We want to lean into the gun. So actually, if you're wearing something that has a little bit of a heel on it anyway, it kind of pitches you forward just a little bit. That's what we want. So when this gun is kicking, our body's mass is here, and it helps us control the recoil. If we've got it going this way, over our center point, whenever the gun kicks, it's going to throw us back. All right, so you want to lean into the gun regardless of what you're shooting. So that is our isosceles. So now we're going to do the weaver. When we do the weaver, I'm going to start with the isosceles and just translate the isosceles into weaver. What I mean by that, isosceles, arms fully extended, I'm square to the target. Okay, my hips and waist are square with the target. When I do weaver, I'm going to step forward with my support side foot. So my left foot, if I step forward with that foot, it makes me drop my support side elbow to let me leave my trigger side elbow locked. Okay, so isosceles, both arms are locked. If I do weaver and I step forward into it, it makes me drop that elbow. So from the front, so isosceles, both arms are fully extended and locked. But if I step forward with my support side foot, it makes me drop that elbow. All right. this is going to get a little bit out of the target shooting thing. Long time ago, people tended to favor the Weaver stance. All right, they thought that was more of a fighting stance. All right, so if the support side foot's forward, that was kind of how they thought. Weaver stance, support side foot forward. It's more like a fighting stance. That's what we're going to do if we're going to gunfight. So we would do that. What they started finding out is a lot of law enforcement officers were dying because they were getting shot here. Their bulletproof vests are here, but if you're standing in a Weaver stance, now your armor plate is not facing the bad guy, okay? And so they were getting hit in the ribs and dying. So long time ago, even before that, you had more of the isosceles, which was just considered a target shooting kind of position. But now we know if we've got a bulletproof vest, that's the direction we want to have it. So depending upon your nature and your use, what you're doing, if you're target shooting, those are just different positions. But that's just the reason why, because of how they were developed and the changes over time, some of the favoring of different positions are. So that is the positions and the fundamentals with the pistol. One other thing is gripping the pistol. It's important how you do it, okay? Anytime you have a handgun in your hand, it's important to have the handgun in your hand in a shooting grip. What's a shooting grip? All right, when you get this pistol, what you're going to want to do is you want to put the pistol high in your hand here, okay? So between your thumb and index finger, the web of your hand, you want to put it as high as you can get it, all right? Up as high as you can get it, and then you want all three of these fingers underneath the trigger guard and to keep your trigger finger straight off the trigger, okay? This is the one-handed shooting grip. Generally, you want the muzzle to be in line with your forearm, okay? The barrel to be in line with your forearm. So high, three fingers, straight trigger finger. This is the one-handed shooting grip. I want to show you one thing, why you want to get so high here, all right? If this was a real gun, you'll notice they call it the bore axis, okay? Look where the barrel's pointed, all right? When we shoot, the energy from this is going straight back this way. The higher we can get our hand, the less it feels like the gun's kicking, all right? So if we hold the gun really weird and low like this, look at the torque that's putting on the gun when it's shooting. Okay, the higher we can get that, the less torque it has. The least would be if we could get the gun like this. So when we shot, it would go straight back into our hand. That would be the least recoil we could get. And there's all kinds of funky designs on guns where they actually come up with stuff like that. Practically, most modern guns, high. That's what you want. High in the web of the hand like that. Three fingers, straight finger. This is the one-handed shooting grip. Now, most of the time, you're going to want to shoot with both hands. The reason, we're already at a stability loss from shooting with a handgun anyway. When we were shooting the rifle, we had all these extra points of contact. We had our shoulder, we had our face, two hands on the gun, a lot more stable. This, we've only got a little bit of control anyway. So if you got the ability to use both hands, use both hands. So that is the one-handed grip. Now we're going to take our support side hand. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the base of your thumb on your support side hand and you're going to fill in the grip here. All right, then I want all four of these fingers underneath the trigger guard. And now with our thumbs, we can do a couple of things. We can either do what's called the parallel thumbs, which is this, or we can do the cross thumbs. Either way is fine. The key is making sure both of your thumbs are on the same side of the gun. All right, we do not want this. Why don't we want that? Because remember, if this was a real gun, when we shoot it, the slide's going to move. If we've got our thumb back here, it won't care. It'll still move. And it'll come raking right across your thumb knuckle. Depending upon the gun, you may get stitches. Might get a broken or dislocated thumb too. So watch your thumbs. Okay, keep your thumbs on the correct side of the pistol. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about with a handgun is grip pressure. Grip pressure. And what I mean by that, when you got the gun in your hand, you got to hang on to it, right? And people, they tend to overdo this because, one, they think the gun's going to jump out of their hand. It's not, all right? I kind of think if you've ever used a hammer to drive a nail, hopefully all of you guys have done that, the amount of pressure you use on that hammer whenever you're driving a nail, that's kind of what you're looking for. You know, if you really grip tight on that hammer and you hit a nail, you can feel it in your teeth, right? Because you're just tense, and it doesn't let the gun work, or the hammer, gun, either one, work by itself. And that's what we're looking for. If you have that hammer in your hand and you just let the hammerhead work, you're not getting all that beating back off of it, all right? It's doing its own thing. Same thing's going to work with a gun, all right? You do not have to hang on super tight onto the gun. And what happens is, let's see if I can demonstrate this with the targets over there. Hopefully we can see that on the screen. Okay, well, you can see that on there. I'm just going to hold it right in the middle of the paper so you can see it pretty good. What happens is when people start gripping the gun tighter, all right, well, what happens is they hold their sights on the target, and their lasers or their sights is dancing around on the target. Okay, while it's doing that, their brain says, I don't want that to move that much. I want it to be stiller. And their brain translates stiller into tighter. Okay, and so then if they squeeze the gun tighter, you see, that doesn't help. All right, see, but if I relax, it settles down. It's going to have movement. It is going to have movement. None of us are machines, okay? All of us are just people, and you're going to have whatever level of muscle variation you've got. That's just going to be part of it. You've got to be really cognizant of that when you're shooting with a handgun, and not try to force the shot to go off when you think the sights sweep through the target. All right, you have just got to slow, steady squeeze on the trigger. Finger on the trigger, slow, steady squeeze, bang. Let the gun fire. Don't make the gun fire. If you try to make the gun fire, that's when you're going to start flinching. It's when you'll go, all right, it's on the target now, and shoot it. And that's when you do that. All right. Some of the tricks I use for people, when we're out on the range, I'll just pick up a piece of brass, and I'll stand the brass up on their front sight. All right, and then I'll make them dry fire the gun without knocking that brass off. All right, that's the kind of trigger control you're looking for. So you imagine that target is that piece of brass, and it's just barely holding on there, and you've got to be so gentle when you squeeze that trigger that you don't move the gun to keep from jerking off the target. There's another exercise you can do, the ball and dummy drill we talked about before, where you have somebody else load the gun for you, and you don't know if they're loading it live rounds or no rounds. You can do that with the 22, especially because we've got so many duds. You can save you a few duds and mix some duds into your magazine, okay? And so then as the duds come up, you're going to have duds again, right? So you're not going to know when you're shooting it whether it's going to go bang or whether it's going to go click, right? And when it goes click, if we do that, that means we're still screwing up. When the gun goes click, there should not be any extraneous movement on your part, okay? Okay. When the gun goes bang, it hides anything you do. But when it surprises you with a click, that's what you should see. Nothing. All right. If whenever it comes up a click and you expected a bang and you go, that's all you. All right. That you flinching. So I really highly recommend you try to find some duds like that. Don't buy dummies, especially for 22 ammo. There's not 22 snap caps. All right. The dummies I have here that we can use, they're not to be dry fired, okay, because it beats the rim off of them. So you can just get duds out of the dud box and put those in your magazine. If you have questions, guys, always email me. You can put them in the notes on the video too. Thanks.